The 2019 7th Gen iPad, no CPU upgrade this year. In fact, it's slower in some ways as you'll see, but there's enough enhancements here to make it the best computing value Apple sells. Maybe ever. Sounds familiar.
The industry's #1 product. Apple has taken the Apple II, refined its design, and added some of the most popular features available on personal computers. The result is the Apple IIe.
The Apple IIe was their longest running machine, selling for over a decade. Imagine that, selling the same thing for 10 years. The iPad itself isn't even 10 years old yet. So much like the IIe, this iPad 7 is an enhanced version of the iPad 5 and 6 sold from the last 2 years. But this year, it really deserves the enhanced label, and I feel it hits a sweet spot for most people. The 50% bump in RAM from 2GB to 3GB is the most significant upgrade. The increase in screen size from 9.7 to 10.2 is great, and a connector for the smart keyboard is a nice bonus. Although I don't know who's going to buy a keyboard that's 50% the price of a device itself, when there's great wireless keyboards available for $20. Design-wise, it's exactly the same as iPad 5 and 6, but just supersized, making multitasking more bearable in a pinch. For the 32GB model, usable space will be almost 22GB out of the box. Moving on to performance. No changes from last year with the CPU. However, there is a dip in graphics performance because the display is higher resolution to maintain the 264 pixels per inch density, so this will result in slower graphics benchmarks and gaming performance. There is also a slight improvement in glare with last year's model, which had a warmish coating versus the neutral one on this iPad. The non-laminated display probably exacerbates the glare problem. It's something that makes the device feel cheap with that gap between the glass and the LCD, but for the price, I guess understandable. Not much going on with the cameras, and looks to be the exact same as the previous 2 generations. Very competent, but very basic, and video is limited still to 1080p 30 frames per second. The speakers did get a little boost, sounding much fuller. Now for the surprising twist in the story. The ongoing complaint about this iPad is that it's very underpowered. Actually, not true. I did my usual 4K export using LumaFusion, the most popular mobile video editing app. The iPad finished in 3 minutes 29 seconds, which is actually very respectable, considering my 2019 MacBook Pro 13-inch i7 with 16GB of RAM did it in 2 minutes 50 seconds using the internal Intel 645 GPU. But what's shocking is the next part. The iPhone 11 with the A13 Bionic chip did the same export in 3 minutes and 14 seconds, which is only 15 seconds ahead of the iPad 7 and far behind the Note 10 Plus, which did it a minute faster. Crazy and unexpected. So I had to do a few more performance tests. Opening some games, you'll see not much difference. You know, for the iPhone 11 with the A13, I'm expecting double the performance, or at least 50% more considering it's 3 generations away. It really varies app to app, and the speed difference just isn't noticeable most of the time. Maybe when developers get around to optimizing the A13, we'll see some big improvements. The battery is the same as the previous years at 32.4 watt-hours, and with a bigger display, I thought it would be hard to reach Apple's stated 10 hours. But it did just fine. On this YouTube test, at half brightness, it lasted 11 hours and 46 minutes, which is the second best device I've tested, the first one being the Galaxy S8. So in summary, this is a great device. You can add a wireless keyboard very cheaply. The Apple Pencil is a must for drawing, but if you just want a stylus for finer control, save some money and get a cheap stylus like this one for 15 bucks. So the question is, do you upgrade if you have the iPad 6? Probably not unless you're running RAM-intensive apps, but then you probably should consider the Pro. But if you're deciding between getting the iPad 6 or 7, please go for the 7. It will cost a little bit more, but the extra RAM will secure its longevity for at least another 3 years, probably 5.
The
iPad 7.
Small, inexpensive, simple to use.